Okay, and welcome to the Cheap Seats podcast here on YouTube. And today we're going to continue with our trend of doing drafts. We're going to use the PFF simulator, and today we're actually going to dive into the 2026 NFL draft a little bit. And it's an interesting draft class. You know, it's not an elite draft class. I think there's some really, really interesting players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think there's a good amount of depth in this draft. I think it lacks the elite punch of other drafts. Like obviously Mendoza at the top, like there's no surprises about what's going to happen there. There's potential for him to be one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, I think. Like, is there some downside? Absolutely. But I think when it comes to this draft, the biggest thing is between when you get about two, some days I feel like when you get to six until you get to 25, there's not a lot of separation. I think a lot of teams in this draft will be looking to move up, move down. I think it's a draft for position of need draft as much as it is for talent. And I'm really, really excited to see kind of what happens in this draft class, because I think there's going to be a large possibility of a whole lot of trade action and a whole lot of activity from teams looking to really go after their guy. And, that's what makes it fun doing mock drafts like this, is we get the opportunity to kind of dive into the psyche and the mentality of the teams that are picking. Now, in this draft, I'm not going to be doing trades. Closer to the draft cycle, we'll do a couple mock drafts with trades built in. And really see kind of where that goes. For this one, we're going to leave teams in place. We're going to do it as is. So some stuff might be a bit random. We'll find out how it goes. But I think that there's a real genuine possibility that we see like an extraordinary amount of movement in this draft. And there are some players that I've absolutely fallen in love so far in the cycle. Obviously, the combine's coming up in a little bit. That's going to give us a little bit more information, a little bit more detail about kind of who's in the hearts and minds of specific teams. But with that in mind, let's just dive right into it, because I'm really excited to talk about what this is and how this draft gets going. So let's jump over to PFF and let's see what's going on here. So we have the PFF simulator up here ready to go. And let me just make a couple little changes here. And now we will dive right in. So all of this, enter draft, and let's dive right in, guys, because like this is going to be fun. These are the types of things that I just absolutely love doing. So the first overall pick, let's just be clear. Let's just be honest. Geno Smith's not the guy. Geno Smith's not the guy for Las Vegas Raiders. He's not the future of this team. He's a capable quarterback. I know he's coming off a brutal year, but the reality is there is no surprise with this pick. There will be no trade with this pick. There's no sleeper. Could, Ruben Bain jump up or Arvell Reese jump up? The pick is Fernando Mendoza. It's the right pick. It's the right pick for their franchise. And honestly, I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on it, because it's so clear and obvious to everybody in the entire world that this is going to be the move going forward. So with that in mind, let's jump right to number 2, because this is one of those interesting ones where, like, when I look at the Jets, I look at the fact that there's a lot of areas that they could use help. Like, obviously they can use help at middle linebacker. That's clear. Their linebacking core, I don't love. I don't love their secondary overall. I think they're pretty set at the end positions. Like in terms of their edge guys, I think they have a good mix of edge rushers. I don't know if that's the route that they're going to look to go, but if you told me that they went wide out, if you told me that they invested in their offensive line, to a lesser degree, or looked quarterback, like could they be a team that absolutely reaches on a quarterback here? I hope not, because you'll find out later in this draft, I am not a big believer in Ty Simpson. So when I look at their needs, when I look at the players that are available on the board, Arvell Reese just stands out. I don't know if they have, I don't want to say the guts necessarily. I don't know if they're the team that's going to break the trend of undervaluing safeties, because I am a big believer in the value of dynamic safeties. I think that Caleb Downs right now might be the best player on the board, period. I do not see the New York Jets as the team that's going to jump up and take a safety with the second overall pick. I think Arvell Reese is the pick. I think he's somebody that is versatile, and I think that he is young and he is just amazingly athletic, and the hand power is so dynamic. Um, you know, is he going to have moments where in coverage, when he's put in coverage situations where he's going to struggle? Absolutely. Does the play recognition sometimes get beyond him? Absolutely, it does. But when you're this dynamic of a young athlete, you have that much youth, that much size and explosiveness. I just think he's somebody that can kind of reshape your team. And there's some level of positional versatility there too. And I just think he's too good to pass up on. I know some people will probably be screaming that David Bailey goes or Ruben Bain. I'm sure some people will want, Caleb Downs to go or maybe jump up for Carnell Tate. I think there's a legitimate chance that they look to trade down from this spot. I think that they are one of the teams that could definitely look to trade down. But for the purposes of this draft, I'm going to go with Arvell Reese because I just think that he is the guy that can offer them the most in terms of the versatility that he provides. And, with the second overall pick, the New York Jets select Arvell Reese. When we're going to number 3, we're talking about the Arizona Cardinals. This is another team where they need tackles. They need edge players. They need a lot. If they went linebacker or safety, like this is another team that like Caleb Downs could make a lot of sense for. Like they have a decent safety group. But there's a lot of things that they can use on this team. But I think the primary one that they would love to go with right now is a tackle. I know there is no generational tackle in this draft. I know there might even be some allure. Jeremiah Love is sitting there, and I think that James Conner, Trey Benson, like the mix of guys they have is fine. Am I going to pick a running back at number 3? Not personally. That's not the move that I would go with. I think that there is a chance that they reach way up the board for a lineman. And I think Francis Mauigoa is climbing boards. And I think when you get to draft time, I think that Mauigoa is going to be a guy that just continues to climb up the board after the combine. That size, 6'6", 335, he has unbelievably good hips for a guy his size. He's patient. Once in a while he struggles with finesse players, but I think he's somebody that if it all hits, this has the ability to be a premier tackle in the sport. There is an allure to the idea of drafting a guy like Ruben Bain or David Bailey, give them that next generation of player that can really attack off the edge for them. But honestly, in this spot, I think that I'm going to reach a little bit, and I'm going to go with Francis Mauigoa, and I think he's awesome. So I might be higher on Mauigoa than some people are. But I just think that pick just makes too much sense to not dive into. I think he sets them up. And I think that with him and some of the other offensive line pieces that they have, we'll see who ends up being the quarterback for this team. But I like what he can provide them. And at the end of the day, you need that dynamic line for anything to matter. Because I do believe this game is won in the trenches. And right now, their trenches just aren't good enough, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And when we talk about teams that just aren't good enough, we can talk about a team that's not good enough on either side of the ball. And right now, that's the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans, like obviously they could use a receiver. They could use edge rushers. I think that they could use more on their offensive line. I think that they have areas of need at tackle. I think that they have areas of need at guard even potentially. I think their guards are okay. You drafted Cam Ward number 1 overall. It's time to insulate him with some talent. It's time to insulate him with some weapons. And to me, I think Carnell Tate is the best receiver in this draft class. I think that his physical traits are just off the chart. I think that he keeps a high tempo in his routes. I think that he has impressive hand strength. And if he gets to a chance to high point a ball against somebody, you're basically screwed. Does he struggle against press coverage? Yeah, he does. And I think that's something he's going to figure out because he's not the biggest receiver in the world. Like he's a big, long, vertical threat receiver, but physically he needs to fill out a little bit. But I think that Carnell Tate being added to this offense, giving Cam Ward the opportunity to have a potential high-level receiver next to him, I think it makes too much sense. And again, this is a spot where I could see Tennessee trying to move it would make sense to a degree, especially since they have so many positions of need. If they can pick up multiple draft picks, slide back slightly, it would make a lot of sense for them. I think it would make a lot of sense for how many gaps they have on their team overall. But I think the Tennessee Titans go with Carnell Tate with the 4th overall pick. New York Giants next on the clock. So again, like, we're in a situation here where this is going to be a theme a lot of this draft, where the team that's on the board is going to be looking to trade down. And I think that they are a team that is going to be looking to trade down. I think that we're in a position where they're covered at edge, and the 2 best players on the board hypothetically are Ruben Bain and Caleb Downs. I can't see them diving in after either of those players. They've got Newbin and they've got Holland at safety. Do they go for Caleb Downs? I know Scadaboo's going to be out. Do they reach on a Jeremiah Love type player? It's tough to say. I know everybody right now is talking about them going out and getting a wide receiver, and that makes a lot of sense for that team. The question is like, do people view Makai Lemon as the guy that is going to be that premier guy that you can place next to Neighbors? Is Makai Lemon the guy that you can just rely on every day in any coverage against any team to really get it done? Like, he's another guy, like, super strong hands. The catch timing is great. He's tough. He's got a full route tree. More quick than fast. Like, is he going to be a run after catch guy? Is he more of a slot guy? I could see Makai Lemon making a lot of sense for the New York Giants if they did want to go this route and just diving in after a wide out to pair with Neighbors, to give Jackson Dart lots of options going forward, make sure that he has the opportunity to be kind of as insulated as possible. And I don't know, I'm kind of warming up to the idea of Makai Lemon now, I suppose. Let's do it. Let's go receiver. 5th overall pick. I think this is too high for this player. Again, I think this is a perfect trade down spot for the New York Giants to acquire additional assets. There is also the thought process of, like, is Mansour Delane the guy in this spot? Like, I think Mansour Delane, like, again, super, super athletic guy, great anticipation, really likes contact, which I love in a corner. Sometimes he's really, really, really overly aggressive, and that gets him into problems. The open space stuff on counters from receivers gives him issues as well. It's got to be one of these two. I think that Delane fits better than McCoy. But you know what? I'm going to stick with the receiver plan. I'm going to go Makai Lemon at 5. I don't love it, but I think it makes sense for this team, who is very, very actively engaged in the idea of getting another receiver to put on the outside. See, and it's tough because I'm talking myself out of it right now. Because Mansour Delane, I think, with their gaps on their team, with Adebo, with Flott, you know what? We're going to go Mansour Delane at 5 for the New York Giants. I think they get their corner. I think it's too early for Lemon. If they're not going to be trading back, I think they go for more of a position of need, especially with some of, like, we'll see what happens in free agency with their receiving core. But I like that as a mix. So we're going to go with that. Now, at 6, the same conversation comes up, right? The Cleveland Browns need a quarterback. I know some of you are in love with Shedeur Sanders. He was abysmal this year. Like, there's no way of changing that. I know some of you will talk about the Pro Bowl that he got. Let's be real. When 11 quarterbacks can't go in a conference, at a certain point, your name pops up. There's potential that Shedeur could be good. I think that defense is absolutely fantastic. And I think the offense does lack weapons. Is there sense in them going Makai Lemon? He can play kind of in or out. I really love him as a slot guy. Like I said, the physicality is so fun as well. Like Jordan Tyson, I guess, could make a level of sense as well. He's versatile, really quick cuts, smooth, great body control. The drops are a bit of an issue. The long speed and the overall strength is an issue. There's an injury history that is really, really difficult to get my head around sometimes. We're going to go Mackay Lemon at 6. Give Shador a wide out, or whoever ends up being their quarterback this year, give them a wide out to play with, because that receiving core was bad. There's no two ways about it. So Mackay Lemon at 6 to the Browns. Again, I think the Cleveland Browns are a team where you could see them aggressively try to trade up, trade down, depending on what they need. They have 2 picks in the first round, because they also have the 24th overall pick. But we're going to go Mackay Lemon at 6. And now the Washington Commanders are on the clock. And the Commanders are a fun team. There's a lot of different stuff going on there. It says positional need is a tight end. It's not like they're picking Sadiq at 7. There's no guards up at this level, but they need edge players. So the question is, does Ruben Bain fit, or does David Bailey fit? And this is going to be a debate that a lot of people have. Ruben Bain is big and physical, 6'3", 270-ish pounds, violent hands, explosive punch. He's hard to predict. He's got shorter arms. He lacks like elite burst, and so his closing and stuff isn't great. The pursuit's not great. David Bailey, it's all about the explosiveness, pure production as well. There is some Nick Benito to David Bailey. I think that the Washington Commanders in this situation, I think they'd want the physicality. I think they'd want that power, that consistency of that power. And I think Ruben Bain's the guy. I might prefer David Bailey, but that potential of Ruben Bain with that power and that size and the kind of scheme versatility that he can offer a little bit. Let's go Ruben Bain at 7 to the Washington Commanders. Oh, the Aints. Here we go. As a Tampa Bay Bucks fan, I feel like I should slide this down into the hundreds and pick somebody random off the board, just to make sure that they continue being the absolute shit show that they've been the last few years. They need a receiver as well. They need guards. They need defensive line. They need a running back, I think, at some point. They need edge players. This is a situation where maybe honestly the best player available is the best guy for them. They have a lot of needs. I don't think there's a running, or I wouldn't go with Jordan Tyson this high, or I wouldn't go with Boston or any of these guys this high up in the draft. I think David Bailey's sitting there for them. I hate the fact that they're going to get him because I think he's a really, really good player. And I think that, there is a potential floor there that is scary, but the ceiling is massive. So the New Orleans Saints at 8 pick David Bailey. The Kansas City Chiefs. And this is one of those situations where the Kansas City Chiefs had a year where they fell back. Obviously injuries, everything else that happened during this season. They're getting older. Their skill positions have some limitations. I think that the receiving core is fine-ish. I think Pacheco is fine-ish. I think they really need some offensive line help, but I don't think there's a pure offensive lineman in this area. That's a game changer for them. There are guys that I do like, but this would be a spot where if they wanted to go offensive line, I think they got to trade back, because I don't think Ione is the guy this early. Caden Proctor's got a ton of potential. Lomu's got a ton of potential. I think Spencer Fano's got a bunch of potential, and Fano could make a level of sense here. But honestly, I think they go pure skill. I think they're looking for that bell cow back. I think that they kind of lost hope in Pacheco halfway through the year, whether you agree with that or not. And I think they grab Jeremiah Love here and, pardon the pun, but run with him for the entire season. Jeremiah Love obviously has the potential to be a very special back. People will say he's got that bell cow mentality. My only concern is that he's never had to do it. Right, I think it said somewhere that 3 games in his college career he's had to rush for more than 20 carries in a game. The overall skills though are awesome, incredible speed. He finishes with intent, wild reacceleration after a cut. It's very early days Madden, where it goes from cut to 100% very, very, very quickly. He struggles to see blocks, which isn't great necessarily in the Kansas City system, especially with that offensive line. he gets cute with his runs sometimes. So he's kind of the polar opposite, where Pacheco runs angry all the time. Pacheco just kind of attacks holes. Love sometimes can get a bit cute and can dance behind the line of scrimmage and take negative runs. And I think that's where some of the Jahmyr Gibbs comp comes from, is like sometimes even Gibbs. Like, I love Gibbs. I think Gibbs is so elite. But there are times where, Gibbs gets a little bit cute. That being said, I think the Chiefs on the clock, Jeremiah Love sitting there. I think he's too good to pass up, and I think they draft Jeremiah Love with the 9th overall pick. Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. I don't even think I need to talk about this pick. I think the reality is arguably the best player in this draft has slid to the 10th pick. I think you're sitting here with a team that has, Geno Stone and Jordan Battle and guys like that at safety. Caleb Downs has the potential to be a multiple-time All-Pro. I think that he is that good. I think that he is a all-levels disruptor. He has elite mirroring skills, especially behind the line of scrimmage mirroring. If he gets caught into situations where he has to cover running backs, I think his mirroring is great. I think he handles tight ends fine enough, for a guy of his size, because he's not the biggest safety in the world, 6 foot, 205. He is so hyper aggressive in run support. Sometimes he gets himself into trouble being over aggressive, no question. But he just looks to create contact and create disruption across all levels. Now, at his size, are some tight ends going to give him problems in one-on-ones? Yeah, they are. That's just the reality of being a slightly smaller safety. But there are some real high level comps to this kid. I heard somebody compare him a little bit to Earl Thomas, and I get it. It's not a 1-for-1, but I get it. That's the level of player this kid can be. And I think Caleb Downs is the guy that goes here at 10 to the Cincinnati Bengals and is a guy that can reshape their defense. Really fun spot for the Miami Dolphins to be in here, because I think there are a bunch of options right now for Miami at 11 that just make a boatload of sense for them. Obviously, they've got holes everywhere. They have went the route too of choosing projects over kind of ready-made solutions. People at a certain point, people criticize the drafting of Chop Robinson for that reason. People criticize the Austin Jackson pick for that reason. I think that with the cutting of Tyreek Hill, is there a possibility they look receiver? Yeah, I think there is. And having a big, physical, rangy guy like Jordan Tyson on the outside, that makes a lot of sense. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that there is a possibility too, where they look at a guy, another big physical guy like Denzel Boston, and think, wow, what would he add? At the end of the day, I think they need a corner more than anything else. An interior defensive lineman, I think, would help as well. There's a possibility of a guy like Peter Woods here, but I think Jamad McCoy is just the dude. Vertical athlete, just explosive vertical athlete. He's a ball hawk, great hips, great mirroring. He's patient to read and react. He struggles in zone. He struggles kind of knowing when to release and when to relocate. Obviously an ACL tear this year, which is a concern, but I think they're a high-risk organization. I think they're willing to take risks on guys that they feel can be genuinely elite. I think Jamad McCoy has potential to be really, really damn good, and I think the Miami Dolphins take another risk because of their timeline they can and draft Jamad McCoy at 11. Dallas really needs some edge. They really need some linebackers. Now they're in a situation too where running back, but running back's not going to happen at this point in the draft. The question is, do you think they would prefer a guy like Cassius Howell, or do you think they'd prefer a guy like Keldrick Falk? Because when I look at the guys that are available, when I look at a guy like Keldrick Falk, who is massive, first of all, 6'6", 285 pounds. I think he's a culture setter. I think the fact that he's 20 years old and he's already a leader, everything you hear about this kid is that he changes the entire atmosphere of the game. He's positionally versatile. He's long. He's smooth. He's, a big, huge guy, right? And there's a lot to his game to as well. But that temptation of Cassius Howell is there, because at the end of the day, Cassius Howell, it's about the production, right? He's smaller, he's faster, he's going to be able to get edge. You can move him around to a degree, despite the fact that I don't necessarily think he has overall like the best versatility as a player. I'm not as high on the overall skill set as some people would be. Despite the fact that I would prefer Falk, I think the Dallas Cowboys would want a little bit more speed, want a guy that can play the edge a little bit more. They obviously invested in Ezeraku, who's another smaller guy. Would Falk make sense next to Ezeraku? Yeah, I think he would. Sonny Styles would almost make a lot of sense here too. I don't know if they'd be that invested in the Sonny Styles marketplace. That's tough. TJ Parker could make some sense for them too. Parker's a little bit of a reach, but like he is kind of that in between on the two players, and that's pure production, right? That's 11 sacks. That's 19 and a half tackles for loss. That's 6 forced fumbles. Super strong. He really uses power to steer blockers. The gas tank is interesting. He's not super versatile. I think TJ Parker could play really, really well next to a guy like Ezeraku, though, as well. You know what? I think that they're going to go Cassius Howell. I think they go Cassius Howell. They live with that pick. I think there's a lot of good options on the edge. It's the one position in this draft that like I can genuinely say that I just think there's an overwhelming amount of depth, and it just makes a lot of sense for them. So that's the way that we're going to go. On to the Rams, 13th pick. Let's bring up their depth chart, because again, a team that could use a corner, no question. They're a little bit thin at corner right now. They're quite thin at corner right now. I think they have guys on the edge that can really play, so I wouldn't be as invested in that. I think they could use a tackle. Their tackle situation is flawed, let's say. Actually, do we not overthink this? Spencer Fano is sitting there. Not my favorite tackle in this draft by any means. He's a big time athlete, super quick hands, he mirrors well, good feet. The strength, though, I worry about the strength. I don't think he's nasty at all. He plays really, really friendly football. A true like pass blocker, right? Like I don't see any nastiness. Now the upside is huge. Like he's a big physical guy, 6'6", just over 300 pounds. He's lean though. He's narrow through the shoulders. But in a system that uses the vertical game so much, having him as a potential elite pass blocker does make sense. I think that we're going to go with Spencer Fano here at 13 for the Rams. I think they'll see good things with him. He's not my type of offensive lineman. He's not the type of guy that I'd want to build around, but I think there is an opportunity that they would be kind of enamored with what he could provide. On to the Baltimore Ravens at 14. Baltimore Ravens at 14. Again, Peter Woods is sitting there. They need some defensive line help. They need a wide receiver, though. Jordan Tyson's there. Denzel Boston's there as well. I'm way higher on Casey Concepcion than some people are. But he's sitting there. I think there's a lot of talent at that position still, just with a lot of question marks. I think it's very scheme specific. But with what they're looking for, I think you're in a situation where it's, do they have faith in Peter Woods? Do they have faith in Caleb Banks? And which kind of route would be the one that they would prefer? Because I think those are the two players that kind of make the most sense for them, for their build. For how good they already are, too. I think they need some immediate production. I think they want guys that can step right in and just kind of do their job right off the kick. And I think Peter Woods is going to be the guy. We're going to go Peter Woods here, 14 to the Baltimore Ravens. My Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the clock at 15. Cade Otton's probably gone. They need a tight end. It says guard is the second highest position of need. I don't believe so. They just had some injury problems at guard this year. I think their guard group's actually pretty good. Edge players, absolutely. Chris Braswell's been brutal, like just a brutal draft pick. Anthony Nelson, they're probably moving off of at some point here. I think they really lack. Hassan Reddick was terrible this year. So I understand the edge. I understand a guy like Falk, who to a degree would make sense in Tampa. But for me, it's linebacker. Are they losing Levante David? Linebacker, I think, was their biggest hole last year. I think that they had such bad reps from that position. Even Levante, who is one of my favorite players in the history of this game, it fell off pretty substantially. And I think Sonny Styles is a guy that can really change the game for them from the linebacker position. I think he has the potential to be genuinely an all-pro player. So without overthinking it too much, like they're getting a play finisher. They're getting somebody that slips blocks, massive frame, disciplined. He separates really well from blocks when he does get, hit. The recognition, that's going to be interesting. Not the best hips in the world. Sometimes he gets kind of like manipulated by quarterback eyes. But I love the overall package, and I think he's going to be great. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are overjoyed to select Sonny Styles at 15. The New York Jets back on the clock. Just a refresher. The Jets went Arvell Reese at 2. They still need a wide receiver. They still need some interior line help. They could still use a player on the outside. They could use most things. Let's just be real about it. Sorry, Jets fans, your team is awful. When it's all said and done, I think this is the time to take the risk. Take the bite on a guy like Jordan Tyson, 16th overall, that amount of potential. The risk of the injuries, I get it all, blah, blah, blah. I think Jordan Tyson makes sense for them. New York Jets select Jordan Tyson at 16. Detroit Lions. And this one's fun because, I think they like linemen who play with some nastiness. I think they want linemen that look to hit guys, look to really just overpower people, punish the other team. I think that's what they want. They want physicality. They want guys that are just going to look to bludgeon you. And there's a few options in this draft of linemen who are just very physical. Caden Proctor obviously is 6'7". He's 366 pounds or whatever. Massive power. He's quick. His hands are smooth, but he's not nasty. He's not nasty right now. Like he just doesn't play an overly aggressive or mean style of football. I don't know how in love with his kind of mentality and approach that offensive line would be. I don't know if they'd want to go that route. Like Caleb Lomu is kind of interesting. Does Lomu... Again, it's more athleticism than traits, and I just don't love that for them. Like when I think about guys, like I said, when they drafted Christian Mahogany in round 6 a couple years ago, I went, you know what? That's the mentality of the type of player that I think that they want to go with. I know they have guys that probably could slide to center in reality. I think they really want that tackle though. They could go edge. A guy like TJ Parker, Keldrick Falk would make a lot of sense, especially with that mentality. You know what? I think they're going to bypass the offensive line for now. I think they're going to look at either an edge or a guy like Avion Terrell. Because I think both of those players can make a lot of sense. Because I just don't see Caden Proctor as a guy that they would go and reach for. We're going to go with Keldrick Falk. This is a culture setter on that side of the ball. And I think that with his size and his physicality, he plays really well on the other side of what they have. I think he's a little bit different from what they have as well. So we're going to draft Keldrick Falk there. my older son is a Carolina Panthers fan. And as a Buccaneers fan, having a son who's a Carolina Panthers fan is, very disappointing. But I loved watching them play this year. What do they need? They need linebackers. They need edge players. They need a little bit of offensive line help. And they need wide receivers. And I think they drafted a spectacular one last year, but they could use another. They could also use a really elite tight end because I just do not believe in the tight ends they have. I don't think Jatavian Sanders is the answer. And we're not even on them. We're on the Minnesota Vikings. So pause on my Carolina Panthers talk. Minnesota Vikings. I think this one's pretty easy. I think they go with Avion Terrell. They need the corner help. They could deal with athletes. I think there's a possibility they look receiver. A guy like Denzel Boston could make sense if they are truly looking to trade Justin Jefferson. So maybe Boston would be an approach that they would go with. I don't think any of the other wide receivers further down make any sense. I think right now Avion Terrell is the best player. I think you build your offensive line. I think you build your defense, and then the offense can come behind and you can be patient with it. I think they have weapons. If they hold on to Justin Jefferson, receivers obviously not a huge area of need. And Avion Terrell is the guy I'm drafting for them. Now back to the Carolina Panthers. Let's just be real about it. Caleb Banks could make a lot of sense here. I think Caleb Banks could make some sense. Obviously they have some interior linemen that I really, really like, though. I think Caden McDonald makes a ton of sense. I love the way he plays, and like there is a tangible level of nastiness there. I think Ione could make a lot of sense here. I think TJ Parker could make a lot of sense. I think they want a game breaker on the offensive side. I think they want a tight end that can do it all. I think they want a guy that can be genuinely dynamic. Kenyon Sadiq is not the biggest tight end in the world. There are some moments where he's going to struggle against bigger, more physical edge players, but he's a willing blocker. I think you can line him up kind of all over the field. And there's a lot of Trey McBride to him. I think there's a lot of Trey McBride to Kenyon Sadiq. And I think that the Carolina Panthers, despite their other needs, because I just don't see CJ Allen, I don't see them reaching for CJ Allen this high. I don't think Denzel Boston's a guy they're going to go up and grab. And to me, Kenyon Sadiq's the guy, and I'm so high on him as a player, though, to be fair. And a little bit for my son, who is a Carolina Panthers fan, but he is also a huge Oregon fan. And to be able to get his guy from Oregon to the Carolina Panthers for a fit like this and an upgrade at that position, giving Bryce Young more weapons, I'm 100% in on it. Kenyon Sadiq goes to the Carolina Panthers at 19. The Dallas Cowboys back on the clock. Last time they were up, they picked Cassius Howell. This time, still have need at linebacker, still have need at safety. Is this the first real big reach that we see? Because I tell you this much, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, I think, is awesome. I think he is an awesome football player, and I would have literally no problem picking him in this spot. I'll just say that flat out. I think that he is spectacular, but I think at the end of the day, they probably just go linebacker. I think they go CJ Allen. I think he makes a lot of sense for them. I think Casey Concepcion could make sense for them as well, because is there the possibility that they're going to lose Pickens? Who knows? But I'm going to go CJ Allen here. I'm going to pick the linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys. They end up getting an edge and a linebacker in the first round, rebuild their defense, reset some things for them. Anytime you can get two players in the top 20 that both fill a position of need, you're in a good spot. Pittsburgh Steelers up now at 21. They need a quarterback. They don't have one. They need a wide receiver because that's a problem. Their tackles aren't good. There's problems all over the field, right? At the end of the day, their corners I don't really believe in. I don't love their defensive line in general. But I think this is a spot where they go receiver. I think Denzel Boston, I don't think they're scared off by the projectability stuff. I don't think they're scared off about the downside, or maybe they are now because the DK Metcalf thing. But I still think they go for it. This has been their tendency to go after guys like this. So I think Denzel Boston's the pick, 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Chargers up at 22. Again, they need line help. They need line help. They need a guard, and there is an absolute beast of a guard sitting on the board right now. And I think Ione is just like the most obvious natural pick. Massive punch power, just, like crazy powerful hips. His feet are good. Like he's not the most mobile guy in the world. Speed rushers can get him. Sometimes he doesn't cover, like if people stunt, he gets lost. But this is nasty. This is a guy who wants to punch through your chest. I think he's fantastic. I think he makes a ton of sense for this team. And I think they're so pumped to have him in this spot because, like, I'm way higher on him than this. I know some technique stuff needs to be figured out. Some mobility stuff needs to be figured out. But when you can get a 6'4", 323-pound guard that has that level of power, that level of aggressiveness, I think you just say, yes, please. Philadelphia Eagles on the board now. Again, they're in a weird spot because their roster is awesome. Do they need some tackle help? Do they need some tight end help? Yeah. Could they use a wide receiver, especially if they're moving off of like A.J. Brown or somebody? Yeah. Do they collect edges all the time? Yeah. Could they deal with an interior offensive lineman? Yeah. But I think a lot of these picks are largely guys that they have the opportunity to develop because their team is damn good. I know there's a lot of, let's say, locker room issues with this squad, but at the end of the day, I think that they're very, very good. I don't think they go tackle. If they drafted tackle, it's gonna be more of a long-term play, somebody that's a project that they can sit for a year behind the guys they have. They've got 2 elite tackles, but aging tackles, right? At the end of the day, I just think that edge makes a lot of sense here because I don't see the tight end that makes sense. They could go slot, I guess, and go with a guy like Concepcion. Actually, you know what? Maybe that. I'm torn on that. I think they would really, really, really like a guy like Zion Young, though, too, to be fair. Like, great size, super powerful hips, great punch. He's aggressive as shit. Again, a guy that struggles with, like, counter moves. Not blazing speed, but I think Zion Young could make a lot of sense for them. And that is like a kind of a developmental play a little bit because they do have edge players that are like of a high quality. Obviously, I'm a higher believer. I made a video earlier in the year about Moro Ojomo and like what I think of him, but I think Zion Young makes a lot of sense. Some people are going to look at this and say, wow, what a crazy reach. Because like TJ Parker, like I do like TJ Parker. And TJ Parker, is that the more like, I know it's more likely, because like that's just pure productivity. They do like productivity. They just like to go after athletes sometimes too. But I think it's hard to turn down TJ Parker at this spot. So we're gonna go TJ Parker to the Philadelphia Eagles. They collect another just super productive, very accomplished college player that can step right in and be a damn good player as a rotational lineman right away, a rotational edge right away. On to the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns, they pick Mekhi Lemon in the first at 6 or whatever. Was it 6? They still need interior line. They still need tackles. Caden Proctor's sitting right there, getting a 6'7", 800-pound. Well, no, he's 365 pounds or whatever, a pound for every day of the year. Again, not the nastiest guy. I think he can learn that. There's a lot of power. There's a lot of projectability. Caleb Lomu also makes sense. There's projectability stuff there. Do they reach for an interior lineman? Probably not. Could I see them going after another skill player potentially? There's a chance. Monroe Freeling too is kind of fun. I don't know if they do the Freeling thing at this point though. I honestly with their draft hit, I think Caden Proctor's the guy. We're gonna go Caden Proctor at 24 to the Cleveland Browns. Chicago Bears at 25. They need an interior lineman. That at the end of the day, like that's what the Bears need. They need a defensive lineman that can dig in. I think you got 3 awesome ones sitting on the board for you right here, which is not the worst place to be in the world. I think that Caden McDonald's a personal favorite of mine. real deal penetrator, big time power. He's smart, deceptively quick. He plays with a mean streak that I just absolutely love, that I think kind of suits that team. The hands are fine. He's more of a tackle for loss guy than a sack guy. Like, he's somebody that penetrates and breaks down the interior line, but he's not somebody that like rips through an offensive line. He kind of more just like flows through the line, right? There are elements like he's not big like Vita Vea, but there are elements to his game that, as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, really do remind me of Vita Vea. And that, I mean that in the best way absolutely possible, because I think Vita Vea is just incredible. I think he is just an incredible football player. So do I go Caleb Banks, or do I go for my guy and dive right in to it? And honestly, I think I'm just going to go for my guy, and I'm going to go Caden McDonald right here. It just makes too much sense. Buffalo Bills are up. Could they use an edge? Absolutely. Wide receiver, linebacker, like they've got some gaps. They've got some gaps. This is a spot where I know they have some of these guys already. I know they have guys that are more of like, slot guys, or a little bit smaller on the size profile. I know it's not the sexiest thing in the world to have too many of these dudes. Casey Concepcion, though, 5'11", 190, just great acceleration, short area monster. The full route tree he can run, he separates, he's got great vision, he's hard to hit. I know he's not a burner. There have been some drop issues. He's not going to block you. Everything is fast all the time. Like, there's only one gear. But I just think you put him and the guys they already have into that receiver core, give Josh Allen that bump. The defense is already pretty damn good. They can build the defense in later rounds as well. I'm super high on the kid. I think he would fit really well, and I think he'd be a production monster for them. Casey Concepcion goes to the Buffalo Bills. On to the San Francisco 49ers. San Fran, skill. They could use a wide out. They could use a tackle. They could use some edge help. I think they could use a little bit of defensive interior help. There's a couple of those guys that are real good as well on the board, ready to go. They do like big, huge, athletic tackles. As we know from their history, they like their athletic tackles. And I think there's a few of those guys on the board right now that could make some sense for them. These are always the tricky spots for me, because like there's also a safety sitting on the board that I talked about earlier that I think is genuinely fantastic and could be a really, really great player in the league. It's tough. I'm looking through my notes trying to see who I think is a better fit, because I just don't see, because like Omar Cooper's not going up here. It's tricky. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go for another one of my guys here. I'm going to go Zion Young. I think they pick Zion Young. I know it's a bit of a reach for some people. For me, it's not a reach. I think Zion Young's going to show out a little bit. Do I think he's a perfect player? No, I don't. Do I think that this is the type of player that San Francisco would go after? I do. Emmanuel Perron is also tempting here. There are a few guys that I think that they would consider reaching on. But for me, like Zion Young just makes a lot of sense. I think he makes more sense than either of the interior guys. Yeah, so let's go Zion Young right here. Now, the Houston Texans on the board 28, and my younger son is a Houston Texans fan, and I think that they need a defensive interior lineman as much as they need offensive line help. And right now, Caleb Banks is sitting on the board, staring them in the face. And I don't even think you need a lot of conversation about it. I think that he is awesome. I get it. The overall production isn't great. This is not a perfect player, but I think this is a guy who's like a true run stuffer. I think that he makes their defense, which was already, arguably either the first or either the best or second best defense in the league. He would make them so much more dynamic even. Is there a thought process of Lee Hunter with that like massive wingspan and the bull rush ability? And, he's another size over technique guy though. Yeah, I'm, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go Caleb Banks here. And I think my son would be happy with that pick. And that's really at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters is would my son be fond of the picks that I'm making? Next up is the Rams. We picked Fano in the first at 13. Yeah, we got Fano in the first with them. They need a corner at the end of the day. I don't think they're going to draft the quarterback of the future at this point yet. And they could, like I said, really use a corner. I think there's a few good corners out there. I think Colton Hood's okay. Keontae Scott's fine. Pons is fine. I think we're getting too deep now, though. I'm not the biggest Brandon Cisse guy. Keith Abney's good too. It's just hard for me to select a mid-size, mid-profile corner without great ball skills for this team that prides their team on ball skills. So I think he makes less sense. I think Keith Abney could make more sense for them. There's more risk. There's more risk in the profile for sure. But he got way better as the season went on too. He was actually a really, really fun tape to dive through. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go Abney to the Rams there. Denver Broncos at 30th. They need skill at the end of the day. I don't think the running backs are good enough at this point. I don't think their receiving core is good enough. I think they've got some fun weapons. I think even at tight end, like they could use stuff like maybe like a guy like Stowers could make some sense here. I don't think they have as much of a need at linebacker as I've heard a lot of people talking about their need at linebacker. I don't think that that's overwhelming, frankly. I wouldn't go for a guy like Anthony Hill here. And frankly, I don't think that like Jake Golladay or somebody fits. I don't think that's a match that makes a whole lot of sense to me. I think they'd want to go after a skill player here. I think they want to add to that group. Chris Bell's fun. I don't know what it is as an overall profile. Like, I heard some people doing the Chris Godwin comparison. I think that's more just physical build. Omar Cooper's kind of fun as well. Like lots of touchdowns, mid-sized guy. I feel like they have him already. It's funny because I really want to do Stowers because I think he's awesome. And again, is there going to be some problems with him and his game? Is there some adaptability that could happen and be problematic? Yeah, there is. Do I care though? Is the question. And actually, that's a fun name too. Is Jeremy Bernard? Because I think that he is a really, really good receiver. I think that he proved a lot this year as well. There's a lot of size there. I think that he's versatile. I think he's got smooth routes, really good vision. I know catching the ball between the hashes, he's had some drops. I know he's not like the biggest in terms of like athlete, but he's a tape that I just really, really enjoy watching. I'm not going to lie. And I think he's performed really well. I think he's got some good length. I think a guy like, Cortland Sutton can really teach him a lot as well. You know what? Let's go with this. I know Broncos fans might be pissed at me for this, but honestly, I think he's better than Cooper. I think he's better than the guys above him, and I think they really do need a receiver. So is it going to be Bernard or is it going to be Stowers? I do really like Stowers, and I think there's a lot of versatility in terms of how you can kind of split him out too. You know what? Let's go with my initial thought. We're going to go with Eli Stowers. We're going to do that. And I think they've got their tight end for the next 7 or 8 years there. New England Patriots, do they just go edge? Do they just attack an edge player? I don't know. Like Lomu's sitting here. I think Lomu's probably, like him and Lee Hunter are probably the best players available. I think Freeland could actually make a little bit of sense for them. I think like a guy like Romello Height, I don't know where Height is, but I think like he could make some sense for them. But like Lomu, are they going to go for another guy who is kind of not the strongest guy? Like he's very athletic. They just invested into tackle, and like we know kind of how that's been going. I'm not as low on Will Campbell as some people are, but like I understand the issues people have. I think they want production today though. I don't think they want to have to wait on production. I think they want somebody that's going to come in and impact day one, be able to do a lot for them, be able to play in multiple situations. And I think Akeem Mesidor is that guy. I think that just makes a lot of sense because I think they'd rather the edge than the interior. And I think Mesidor just makes a lot of sense for them. He can do so much. Now again, old, he's 25, average athlete, super smart, very high IQ, can play across multiple systems. I like all that stuff. The downside is you're investing a first round pick in a guy who is already 25 years old. I think he'll be 26 before the start of the season. I might be incorrect on that, but I believe that's the case. It's tough to be overwhelmingly excited about that situation. Is there a chance they would want a linebacker? Because like I know Robert Spillane was awesome, but like Christian Ellis, they could deal with outside linebacker as well because I think there is room, like I said, with their edge players. I don't love their edge. I'm actually shocked that I'm taking this long on this team that I can't stand. You know what? Let's uh my first instinct when this started was Romello Height. Let's go with Romello. Texas Tech off the board. And with the 32nd pick overall, Seattle, I don't know if they go running. They wouldn't go running back this early. There's nobody on the board that's worth that pick. Center and guard, I think they can attack those positions in the mid rounds. I think those positions have like real genuine mid round upside. Although like this is a guy that I really really enjoy. Again, there are problems with it. Like don't get me wrong. Short arms and slow feet is not often a combination that I love, but it's that mentality thing. I think that he's a guy that just wants to punch you in the face when he plays, and I absolutely love that about him. I think that a guy like Jake Galladay could make sense. Like Jake Galladay could make a ton of sense for them with the way that he plays, that level of like physicality and athleticism. Obviously not the twitchiest athlete in the world, but man, he's another guy that just plays hard, plays the right way, tries to get on you. I am overwhelmingly shocked that Emmanuel McNeil Warren didn't go in the first round of a draft that I'm doing because, like, I don't know if there's a person on this planet that thinks more highly of him than I do at this point. Last pick of the first round. Do they go corner? I could see them, and this is the tricky thing because they really don't have like massive positional needs, right? Their team's rock solid, and that's what makes it interesting. Because like Prignon is also like quite good as well. I'm trying to see if there's anybody that I've highlighted that I absolutely love down the board that could make sense here as well. Oh, I didn't mean to hit on Colton Hood there, because that's definitely not a guy that I'm overwhelmingly in love with. You know what? Let's go line. We're going to go with Chase Besantis, and I think that is the right pick. Like I said, he's a culture setter with the way he plays, and I think they have time to develop him slowly with what their positions of need are. I don't think it's the biggest position in need for them, and like I said, I wouldn't be entirely shocked if they decide to move off this pick as well. Or move up, try to get somebody higher level, because they don't have as many gaps. So you can afford to sacrifice a little bit of your draft board to move up for a higher quality player if you don't need to have 4 or 5 guys come in to fill spots. So, but that's the pick we're going with. That's the draft that we've went with for the first one of the year. Some great players left on the board is the reality of it. Like some really, really, really great players were left. So we had Fernando Mendoza going to the Raiders, Arvell Reese to the Jets, Francis Mauigoa to the Cardinals, Carnell Tate to the Titans, Mansour Delane to the New York Giants, Makai Lemon to the Cleveland Browns. Washington Commanders get Ruben Bain Jr. at 7, which is crazy. David Bailey to the Saints. I hate that as a Bucs fan. Jeremiah Love slides to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think he's just an unbelievable fit for them. The Cincinnati Bengals get the best draft pick in this draft, value-wise. Caleb Downs at 10. I feel like there is a possibility he slides to, which is ridiculous. Jermod McCoy goes to the Dolphins. Cassius Howell goes to the Cowboys. Rams pick up Fano. Woods to the Ravens. My Buccaneers get Sonny Styles, which is the perfect draft pick in this draft for him. And no, I didn't do that intentionally. The New York Jets add Jordan Tyson to already grabbing Arvell Reese, which is a great draft for them. The Lions get Falk. Terrell to the Vikings. My older son gets Kenyon Sadiq. He's a Panthers fan and an Oregon fan. And again, I did not preordain this. This just happened at random, but it's the right pick for that team, too. I think he gives them a weapon that they don't have currently. I know some people love Jadavian Sanders. I'm not there. Cowboys add C.J. Allen to the Cassius Howell thing. They kind of reset their defense. Denzel Boston goes to Pittsburgh, which to me makes sense. Ione to the Chargers. TJ Parker, the Eagles just get another production monster. Caden Proctor to the Browns as an upside pick, along with Makai Lemon. The Chicago Bears get Caden McDonald, who I think is a sleeper in this draft. The Buffalo Bills get one of my favorite guys in this draft, which is Casey Concepcion. I think that he is awesome. He'll be a production monster for them. The 49ers get Zion Young, which some people will think is a reach, but I think the kid's really good. Caleb Banks to my younger son's Houston Texans, which, they didn't have a lot of needs in that area. I think in reality, they probably would have traded down from that pick or tried to trade up to get somebody who's more appropriate for their fits. But I think Caleb Banks is awesome. Keith Abney II goes to the Rams, to add to their Spencer Fano pick from earlier. Eli Stowers goes to the Denver Broncos. I just think that that's a perfect fit for them. Romello Height goes to the Patriots. They can allow him to develop a little bit and play as a situational rusher. Chase Besantis goes to the Seattle Seahawks, who don't really have a ton of positions of need, and I think they can bring him along slowly. Overall, I think that the draft went really well. I think that it's in a situation where it worked out. And I'm happy with it. Obviously, the next time we do this, we're going to have more data. The combine would have happened, and we'll probably add in some trades the next time. So I'm super, super excited to see how that goes down. I'm super excited to get back on here. If you want more long-form content, more specific subjects, doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter what it is, put it in the comments section. Follow me on YouTube, give me a share, give me a like. I'm trying to build this thing up. I think I'm at like 260 followers right now after only posting a couple videos. So it's going well, but I really, really want to invest in this. And like I said, follow me on other platforms as well. TikTok, you'll get daily hits from me on TikTok about the NBA, Major League Baseball, boxing, the NFL, everything in between. And like I said, if there's anything specifically that you want to hear me talk about, just put it in the comments section. Hit me up there, and hopefully we can continue to have a lot of fun with this stuff because I'm having a great time making it. And you guys are so interactive and so warm, and it's been a blast. So I hope you have a great day. And like I said, hit that follow button, and we'll talk again later.